day. Glorious day. You're going to find out why I'm laughing. And for those that are not first-time listeners, I'm sure you understand why I'm laughing already. And we'll definitely get into that. But hello to all you wonderful and unique beings. It is Monday, January 15th. For those that are listening on the pod and not watching us live on YouTube, it's Tuesday, January 16th. And we're here to talk sports. And we'll do so every Tuesday, showing love to all of you, as I mentioned already, that are watching live on YouTube. Hello. We appreciate you guys. Sam, we got a lot of fun stuff to get into. The games this weekend were very, very interesting. As we record, there is literally a game going on. It is the Bills and the Steelers. It just kicked off just a little while ago with all of the snow and all of the things that happen in Buffalo this time of the year, a place that I never want to go this time of the year. But we'll definitely get into the biggest upset that happened. Sam and I both chose the Cowboys, and it was reverse psychology for me. I don't know if it was for Sam, but it paid off. A coming out show for Jordan Love. We also got to see some very other interesting play and good play for sure throughout other games. So we'll definitely get to that. But let's get through our introduction first. Now to introduce the most dominant tag team from the East, the brains of the group, the number cruncher. He's the advisor. Sam, what's up?
Hey, Mom.
Huh?
Just saying hi to my mom in case she was listening.
Oh, okay. You said that right after, and I was so good. You could see the genuine confusion on my face. But yes,
that was good.
Hi, Mama. Hey. And I'm the other half of the duo. I'm Brandon. I'm just here so I won't get fined. This is episode 120 of the Chasing Points podcast. How you doing all in all, Sam?
I'm good, man. It's we haven't recorded during a football game in a while. We used to do Sunday nights, and that was fun. But this is fun to see. Yes. I don't want to go to Buffalo when it's any kind of cold either. So sign me up.
Yeah, no.
For that.
Anything upstate, even though people like to try to deem us as upstate, we're not. We're technically mid-state. But anything upstate this time of year, and Canada as a whole entire country are absolutely off limits for me this time of year. I love Canada. I love Canada during the spring.
Toronto is wonderful. I heard Montreal's
amazing.
Fantastic. I go to Toronto a couple times a year for work. It's wonderful. I have a lot of friends up there. Yep, no same. Thanks, guys. It's cold enough here. I can't do it.
I've been invited several times during the winters over the past few years, and I absolutely tell them no. If you value me as a friend, you will not invite me there during the winter ever again.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen.
There you go. Fair enough.
Spring, summer, fall, sure. Winter, absolutely not. So Sam, let's not even waste any time. Okay. I don't want to bury the lead because I don't want you to yelling at me like you did before. So let's just go right into the upset of Wildcard Weekend. Packers at Cowboys. Packers were the 7 seed. Cowboys were the 2 seed. We both picked them. By them, I mean the Cowboys. They had everything in front of them, and they left everything behind them.
Yeah, that's very well put. Next game.
They left everything behind them.
That's great. Yeah, it was not what we were expecting, especially as dominant as the Cowboys have been at home this season, and as well as they've played, and as I think one of the bigger shocks too was how well this defense continued to play all year. And that none of that happened, and the score was 48-32. Wasn't even that close.
Yeah.
So, it was something left to be desired for a lot of Cowboy fans, but also familiar territory, unfortunately, for a lot of Cowboy fans, and we know a lot of them. And just reach out to your Cowboy friends. And
did you console your sister? Tell her I said hi. Remember how she told me hi? Tell her I said hi. Make sure you let her know I said hi.
I have not spoken to my sister in the last.
That's a bad brother. You should have checked on her.
Yeah,
you should have checked on her right away. But I mean, I know she's going to be all right because all Cowboys fans should be all right because even though they're delusional, they know this is going to be the outcome every single year. And it has been. And it continues to be. And it's crazy to see their former head coach and Jimmy Johnson over there on Fox getting them amped as if they could hear it. But that's who they needed in the locker room at that point in time, clearly, because there was no adjustments made, and they went with their game plan, and the Packers punched them in the face. This was Jordan Love's first playoff game,
Couldn't tell.
and he made Dak look like it was his first playoff game.
Yeah.
He made that whole Cowboys team look like it was their first playoff game. They absolutely exposed Gilmore, who's going to be a Hall of Famer. They made him bite because he likes to jump routes. So they made him bite to the flat, and they took it up field, and they were beating them. There were so many plays, and by so many, it was like 3 plays that the receivers were wide open. Like nobody around him for like 10 yards. Wide open.
Consistent, and he had over 100 yards, but consistently the same wide open in the middle of the field.
Yep.
It happened too much. Yeah.
Aaron Jones, 3 touchdowns in this game. Has only had, I think he only had 2 rushing touchdowns the whole season.
He had a rough year, and he's battling injuries. He's a tough son of a gun now. But
yeah, he had a bad year, but he did not have a bad game against the Cowboys.
I was at my sister-in-law's house. I said to my brother-in-law, "Man, Aaron Jones looks like he's a rookie again. Like the way he was running, and it was they punched you in the mouth. Jordan Love did, just look like this is old, old news for him.
He looked like Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Those throws off that back foot and the way he was just lobbing it in there, it was great. So as I was telling Sam before we came on here, I was spending time with my lady for our anniversary, and we went and celebrated her friend's birthday as well, up in the Catskills, and they're Eagles fans. So we were sitting there and we were just gloating about this. And I made sure there's one particular Cowboys fan that I hope is listening to this, because out of all the Cowboys fans, I don't talk trash to, period. But this young man decides to bring it to my front door. It's true. And right. Sam, at the beginning when we started this podcast, I would take shots at the Cowboys, here and there, and I've lessened it a lot. I would say I've lessened it a lot. But I'm not going to lessen for this young man, because he made sure that he brought this to my front door when the Eagles lost and have been on the skid, and they still obviously have a chance of losing tonight, which is fine. But it doesn't really matter to me if they lose tonight, because I've been seeing what they're doing, and it's kind of par for the course at this point in time. But what is also par for the course is what the Cowboys do every year and what they did, and they acted as if they were going to do something. This was 100% the year that the Cowboys had a chance to go somewhere for real. And they blew it, as they always did. And for those that are Dak apologists, it's a hard day for you today. It's going to be a hard week, a hard off season for you to watch that. And I know a lot of people have said, well, the defense didn't really give Dak a chance. Well, Dak has a job to do offensively. He threw 2 picks. And they just did not look good. CD was dropping the ball, had the problem dropping the ball again. Ferguson was a bright spot. He's been a bright spot on that team for a while. But at what point, as I said to you before earlier this season, at what point do you say it's time to move on from Dak? We are now here. The offseason is here for the Cowboys. Dak is due to get paid. Dak had a potential MVP season, but the verdict was still the same. Dak has a phenomenal record every other month except for January,
when it counts, right?
Exactly. Yeah, so are you going to continue to pay this young man this money that he's proven that when it gets into those times that we need you to really step up and be that quarterback, and you never have? You haven't done it. You literally had a rookie first-year starter, because Jordan Love's not a rookie, a first-year starter come in here and absolutely own this team and look way better than you.
Right.
When are you going to be able to do that? We watched C.J. Stroud, which we'll get into that game. We watched C.J. Stroud, who is arguably the best rookie quarterback that anybody has ever seen. Statistically, he is. Come in and do what he's absolutely done and willed his team to a victory. And again, Dak, when are you going to do this for the team? So I that's my question I pose to you. I will shut the hell up. I'm really curious to hear what you think about that.
Great question. I was reading something on The Athletic earlier that, Dak's in his final year of his contract next year, and the cap hits like over $60 million. So he's going to get an extension just to figure that money out. and I know you've been pounding the table all year, and I don't think you're wrong about Kirk Cousins, who was on his way to having one of his best years, but
Yep.
until he got hurt, despite
Yep.
even though the team was started 0-4 or something, or 1-4, however it was not the best record, and that team turned around. And I have to imagine that if Kirk was healthy, they would have been beaten down the door for the playoffs, just like they were. They did it with Nick Mullins and a brief stint from Joshua Dobbs. So I would take Kirk Cousins over I would take Kirk Cousins over a lot of the quarterbacks in this league as a team that almost had Kirk Cousins and desperately needs a quarterback. And aside from Aaron Rodgers, I don't think Dak Prescott's grow on trees. It's very hard.
That's true. Yes.
And I will not pin all of this or the recent failures on Dak. And I know you're not. You're realistic and rational enough to kind of be able to sort all that through. But it's tough. He went to bat for McCarthy after the game. He said, "We got better. I got better because of Mike McCarthy." And
it doesn't matter.
he's
McCarthy is going to be there. If he's still there, bro.
Look, two 12-win seasons back to back, but ultimately the same ending, right? Since '96, they've made the playoffs and exited without a win 8 times. Wow. Since the dynasty was over, if you will, the last Super Bowl. And they're 5-13 since '96 in the postseason. Previously, they were 31-18. So that's like, this is not a Dak problem. It was a Tony Romo problem. It was, whoever else before that. But yeah, I don't know what you do. I think you're stuck with Dak for at least another year. I don't know how that all is going to work out in the paperwork and whatnot, but
yeah,
I think Mike McCarthy's looking for another job in a couple days or so.
Listen, if I'm Jerry, so Jerry's got a tough dilemma here, and the reason why he has a tough dilemma here is to the points that you just made. It wasn't all Dak's fault. It wasn't all the defense fault. But it definitely is the coaching's fault too. Like it's not all their fault because they're not out there playing, right? So everybody played a part. Everybody was a piece to this full pie that absolutely folded, right? So what do you do as Jerry Jones? Because you have Dak, who throughout the season was in the MVP conversation. During the regular season, obviously there was a playoff game, so it doesn't count towards MVP voting, but Dak is still in the MVP conversation.
Yeah, voting's done.
Right?
So,
voting is absolutely done. He's still in the MVP conversation for what he's done in the regular season, right? Mike McCarthy is in Coach of the Year conversation for what his team has done during the regular season. He's also, which you sent me, I think it was you that sent me, this is 3 years in a row that he's had his teams at 12 wins. And they have not gotten to the conference championship, right?
They haven't gotten to the conference finals in their last 13 playoff appearances.
There you go. This is two. He's 2 out of 3 in the playoffs, McCarthy. So these two 1 and dones. And then what was it last year? It was the Buccaneers last year, right? That they beat, or is that 2 years ago?
Last year wasn't the year where they did that stupid audible and they had Zeke.
That was last year against the Niners.
That last year?
That was the Niners, yeah. So 2 years ago was against the Buccaneers when they beat them, which the Bucs weren't a great team then, right? So what does Jerry really do? Like if you get rid of Mike McCarthy, he's had 3 teams in a row have 12 wins, right? It's hard to even get to 12 wins in this league. We can see so many people that didn't get even close to that, right? You have a defensive coordinator in Dan Quinn that had this defense buzzing. Yes, obviously they were missing some people, but teams learned about the Cowboys. It's the same thing. And it seems like Dan Quinn's defenses don't make adjustments. Like, this is the game plan. It is what it is. Here we are, right? And then you have the players like the CeeDee Lambs that you're paying X amount of money. You got Dak. What do you do? So if you're Jerry, Sam, and this will be the last point so we can move on to other games, what do you do if you're Jerry?
I think it depends who. I mean, the hot name and the no-brainer name is Bill Belichick, right? Jim
Yeah.
Harbaugh, I don't even know if that's a realistic thing or whatever, but it depends on like what you can do, because I don't know if you have a lot invested in this team, and there has been an improvement, at least in
Mm-hmm.
how the team has been playing under Mike McCarthy,
Agreed.
despite not being able to show up in January. And they're not the only team that has this, bad January record. I mean, look at the Dolphins. You can make some other cases here, but they want all the smoke, and they're going to get the smoke when it doesn't work out. So I don't know what you do unless you can get Bill Belichick, which I don't know what that dynamic looks like.
Yeah.
I think you probably got to see what's out there, but I don't know if Mike McCarthy coming back is in the best interest of anybody. I think you're stuck with Dak. I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. I don't know what else you're gonna do. Look at the free agents: Tannehill, Kirk Cousins. I'm not, those are the names that jumped up out to
Yeah.
me that are free agents. I don't know you're getting much better than that. You're gonna turn a playoff ready team to Trey Lance. You
Yeah.
did trade a 4th round pick for him, which is pretty high assets for him, but I don't know. I don't know. What would you do? I think he's probably gone,
Who?
McCarthy.
McCarthy?
Yeah.
I think he's gone. I think Dan Quinn. It's going to be between Dan Quinn. Bill and Jerry apparently have a really, really good relationship. So I don't know how that looks. I don't think Bill cares if he's the GM or not, and I don't think. Actually, I know that Jerry and Steven are not giving up the GM reins because they've actually been drafting pretty well, and they don't want what has been happening with Bill. But also, I would even question because I forgot who said it in the conversation I had, but or actually, it was Shannon Sharp. Did not have a conversation with him. I would like to,
You don't chat with him?
but he said, I think people also need to think about that. Bill was willing to relinquish the power that he had so easily, right? Like why was he willing just to part with the power that he had so easily? Like what else is potentially going on? That's a whole nother topic. But I think if I'm Jerry, McCarthy's gone. I don't know if I let Dan Quinn go because the defense is really good under him. And
Despite dropping 48 to the 7th seed.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a combination. But I mean, Dan Quinn is also was the head coach of the team that allowed the Patriots to come back and beat them after the Patriots were up by so much. So he's also that Dan Quinn.
Oh, that's the same guy.
That's that guy.
Oh,
So
that guy.
seems like that's in his DNA. So yeah, I think the number one thing is McCarthy, and to your point, I would say I would tell Dak, we're only signing you for 1 year. You prove it to us this year. We obviously know what you can do during the regular season. We've seen it. Great. We don't need you just for the regular season. We need you in the postseason. We need you to step up. When things aren't going right, we need you to be the person that brings us where we need to go. And he didn't do that yesterday. He had a terrible game.
16 straight wins at home. They averaged 37 points a game at home this season. So, this is why you win your division, and this is why you want to win your division.
Yep.
Now, you saw the Browns had to go into Houston. It was 80 degrees. We'll get to the Dolphins Kansas City game. It was 80 degrees in Miami on Saturday. It
Yeah.
was like negative 20 with the wind chill in Kansas City. So this is why you want to host playoff games. They had the perfect scenario, and it just they couldn't get it done. But I don't want to diminish what the Packers have done either. They've been on a roll to end the year. Matt LaFleur's teams really pick it up in December. They finally lost a December game this year, but he's been perfect in December before that. So they have a really good core, and just really impressive showing from Jordan Love here, who did not look like it was his first playoff
No.
start, and
No.
his 16th career start, or not 16, maybe 19th career start or something like that. So, kudos to that team. tough sledding next week. We'll get to that, but
Yeah, we
for
will.
now,
Let's get to the team that we've rooted for from afar and watched their turnaround. And last night it reached its peak, and they are potentially still climbing as they are facing either the Bucks or the Eagles after tonight's game. But the Lions, well, it should be the 6 seed Rams were at the 3 seed Lions. The Lions won 24-23. It was such a good game, and there was so many storylines in this game. Could this be Aaron Donald's last game? Right? If they win or lose, we obviously know the verdict. They lost. It was Matthew Stafford coming back to Detroit. It was Jared Goff facing his old team that said they didn't want him. It is the Lions that had not been in the playoffs for 32 years. 32 years in a row, Sam. The first time they were in the playoffs. I can only imagine how that would feel for my team to not be in the playoffs for 32 straight years. Let's start with the atmosphere. We've already said the score. Let's start with the atmosphere. Seeing the who's who of Detroit on the sideline. Barry Sanders, Eminem, Big Sean, Megatron. There's so many other people, celebrities that were there. The crowd, as Dan Campbell described it, was absolutely electric.
Yeah, it was a great environment. It looked like.
They said the stadium was shaking. It was a different type of energy that was in there. And this is what you play in the playoffs for. You play for an opportunity to be in a position such as this, to play in front of your home crowd and get this going. And I can only imagine watching grown men cry after they won, which I was a casualty of tears after the Eagles won the Super Bowl. So I can absolutely tell you, if they were to win one again in the near future, I will cry again. I'm guaranteeing that. But to watch grown individuals, ball crying, seeing this is, I mean, again, they haven't been to playoffs in 32 years. So that's older than some people that I actually
No,
know.
they
It's older
haven't
than it's older than
won.
my
Yeah,
girlfriend. It's older than my girlfriend. Like legit.
calling her out
So
like that.
huh?
Calling her age out like that.
Yeah. Well, she calls me old all the time, so
There you go.
whatever.
Makes sense. They've won. They haven't won a playoff game in that long. They've made the playoffs.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's right. That's true. But still,
yes,
that's
still
making it and not winning is still the same thing
won
for
the
me.
division and all that. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it was a crazy environment. We talked. I don't know if I said it on the podcast, but I was going back and forth on this game because I bought into the Stafford storyline, but we've been talking about this Lions team for a really long time, and ultimately, I think like home field advantage in the playoffs matters, and
Yeah, it absolutely does.
when you have the fans as crazy as they were. Mike Tirico said maybe before the game started or right after that, an hour before kickoff, there was a crazy amount of fans like already seated, and he's never seen that many fans seated an hour before a game before. So, that just kind of speaks to it. There's plenty of stuff to do at Ford Field. So, that's just that's testament to how ready these guys were for it. And it was a great game. It was like it was fun to watch. It was, I was rooting for the Lions, but
I
it
want to
was
start with Dan
it was a good game.
Campbell and Jared Goff.
Yeah.
Two guys that were basically thrown to the wolves early and often in their career, especially for Dan Campbell as a head coach. And as we've talked about several times on here, the interesting press conference that he had to start off. Jared Goff was number one pick and did not live up to that number one pick potential for at least the first couple of years, but did eventually lead the Rams to the Super Bowl, and they lost. And then McVay gave him the boot, and he was stand up for what he said after the game. He said, he was proud of Jarrett. He wishes that, the way that they transition out would have been better. And realistically, how would it be better? You basically told this young man as number one pick, we don't believe in you. We believe in Stafford, and we just don't want you here. Right. Which worked out for them because they got a Super
I
Bowl,
think
right?
this trade worked out for both
Yeah,
teams.
yeah, it did. It
Totally
did.
did.
But
And
now to me, I see more of an upside for the Lions because of age. Goff is obviously younger, but he's also getting that confidence, and that's where I want to credit Dan Campbell. Is he's when in that game against the Cowboys, which they should have won. Um, he kept going for it and kept putting the ball in his hands and saying, "Listen, you're leading this. Let's go." And when it mattered the most in this game, he threw the ball. He gave the ball to Jared Goff. Jared Goff went to Amon St. Brown and was able to clutch it up. And you can see, like, you can kind of see the relief out of Goff when he turned around and rose his hands up to the crowd, like, yeah, we did this. Like, this is for you. And then also hearing the post game interview of how it just seems as if it's just one team, even all the way to the GM, right? To the GM, all the way down to special teams. This team seems as much as a cohesive unit that I've ever seen. Like, they fight for each other, they continue to push, and they're a nightmare for people. And I think people need to realize that even if they don't win the next game, or they do win the next game and then they lose the game after that, the Lions are going to be around for a while now with this team that's been built. And yeah, it was just a really, really good game. Like a really, really good game.
if you look at Goff and Stafford's numbers since the trade,
Mhm.
they both have this is from CBS Sports. They both have 24 wins, completion percentage. I'm assuming this includes the playoffs, but I might be wrong. 66%. Passing TDs, Goff has 3 more. Turnovers, they both have 41. Their passer rating is almost identical, 96.5 or point 0.8. So it's a wash there. And you think about it too, why I say this worked for both teams. Goff was a throw in there to make the salary work, and because they couldn't necessarily cut him.
Agreed. Yep.
The Rams couldn't. And now Detroit's got their guy. He's got the chip on their shoulder like most Lions fans have. And then you get basically Sam Laporta and Jahmyr Gibbs in that trade.
Yep.
Through other trades,
Yep.
and they made a lot of trades on draft night the last 2 nights, last 2 years, whether it was last year or Jameson Williams the year before. So yeah, it's worked out. And now they get to host a playoff game. So as you mentioned, whoever wins tonight's NFC game, the Eagles or the Bucks, they're headed to Ford Field, and based off what we saw last night, that's going to be a tough environment for sure.
Sorry, this my game decided to just go off for some reason, but the Bills are up 7-0 unless the Steelers just scored. But yeah, no, I'm just very intrigued to see what is going to happen with the Lions, and I'm also very intrigued now to see what's going to happen with the Rams, Sam. Because they have a really young team, and we're both a fan of Puka. Puka Nacua has literally
Puka not be stopped.
He's just phenomenal. Just the way he plays is him with Cup, which obviously we know Cup wasn't his fully self. He came back from the injury. Just imagine Cup has a healthy start to next year. Puka healthy start. That is going to be a very interesting duo to deal with. And
Yeah.
with Stafford, I also love the way Stafford throws the ball. I don't love what the Lions fans did where they were booing him and giving him the middle finger. Like, that's just stupid. Like, you guys loved him. You loved everything he did for you. Like, yes, he's the rival. You can cheer him and at the beginning, and then like during the game, yes, make it loud so it's not good. But there's no reason to flip him off and boo him. He tried his best with the limited resources around him. It was really him and Megatron, and that was it. You know what I mean? Like, it really was nothing else. Obviously, there was Ndamukong Suh on the defensive side and so on and so forth. But yeah, I really like where this Rams team is potentially going to go and can go next year. So I'm just
Cooper
curious to
Kupp,
see where Donald goes, if he stays, if he comes back or not. Like, that's going to be very intriguing to see him.
Yeah, they're ahead of schedule. No one counted the Rams for anything this year. I mean, we looked at this roster and was like, all right, well, they they traded everything for a Super Bowl. They got it, and now
Yeah.
they don't have Jalen Ramsey, and they have Stafford had surgery in the offseason, and all these other moves of these guys that aren't here. And Kyron Williams has developed into a number one running back. You mentioned the 5th round pick, Puka. Tutu Atwell's a nice receiver. Demarcus Robinson has been revived in LA. So, it's a nice foundation to continue to build off of. And, again, kind of played with house money this year. And, Stafford said he's coming back. So we'll see.
That'll be fun. That'll be fun to see. Very interesting to see. What was also very interesting to see was the number 6 seed Dolphins at the number 3 seed Chiefs. And the Dolphins absolutely got spanked. Sam literally texted me and said, the Dolphins don't play great against good teams. And Sam was absolutely right because the Dolphins did not play great against a good team. And here we are watching the Dolphins lose again. This is now 11 straight games for the Dolphins that they have lost when game time temperature is 40 degrees or below. 11 straight games.
Yeah.
So needless to say is that the Dolphins need to do everything in their power to try to play in Miami and get the 1 or 2 seed to allow themselves to play there. Because if they don't, this time of the year, they are going to lose because they cannot seemingly win in the cold.
And that's why week 18, where they laid an egg against, the Bills came back and won that game and got the 2nd seed, and now they're hosting a playoff game. That's why it's important because, as I mentioned, it was 80 degrees in Miami over the weekend. And it's, there's viral videos of literally people taking water bottles out of coolers and it's freezing on site. Like, and it just, the Dolphins didn't show up. And aside from Tyreek's big touchdown catch, he continued to not show up against his former team.
Yes.
But, McDaniel's 0-3 under 40 degrees and Tua's 0-4 under 40 degrees. So, it's a thing. I hate this narrative that but it's true. Like, they are a finesse football team. They are very good. Don't get me wrong. The defense was brutally hurt and it was missing a lot of big names. We've talked about it. But this offense, still was not at full strength, but they're a very finesse team, and it doesn't necessarily translate to January, February football, especially when it's so cold.
Yep.
And, the Dolphins didn't show up. And I got to give props to the Chiefs, who, aside from what the weather was and from being home in an environment with a crowd that is arguably one of the loudest in all of sports.
Yes. It's them and the Seahawks. So, yeah.
Literally from a decibel level.
Yes.
Those two places are the hardest to play. Yep. And the Chiefs just show no matter what, they came through. The game was not as close as the score even looked. It was, what'd you say, 26-7 or something like that. It the Chiefs had to settle for some field goals there. But it was Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid in January, and I think it calmed a lot of the conversations, and we talked about it a lot last episode. Now the Chiefs have to go into either Buffalo or what's the other scenario? They go to Buffalo or they I'm not sure what the other one is. I wrote it down somewhere, but regardless, it's if the Steelers win, I guess they host a game. Would make sense, but it's not looking like that at the moment. But we'll see. Yeah, just
14-0.
So that
Bills.
Do you think the Chiefs are back? How do you feel about the Chiefs? You think the Chiefs are back, or are you less worried than you were. I know we had a lot of concerns about how the season ended for Kansas City.
I mean, Mahomes turns it on in these games, but I'm still concerned with Kelsey's hands. Because I watched Kelsey drop several passes in that game too that were wide open. Mahomes put in money. I watched him also hit. I forgot who it was that he hit. I don't know if it was Scantley or Tony, but he hit directly on the hands and dropped the ball. And he literally walked off and said, "Not again." Like, not again. And so I know they stepped up and when it mattered, but if they're gonna face any of these teams left in the AFC, like if the Bills win, I'm 100% sure that they are gonna need to be on point, and I don't know if they're gonna be able to do that. Right? The Dolphins have been sketchy as hell, like more sketchy than the Chiefs. So I don't know if I believe that the Chiefs are going to be in the final game this year. But again, as we know, anything's possible with Mahomes. It's the same treatment that we gave Brady. Brady's not here anymore, so that Brady has now shifted to Mahomes. It's like we just know with this guy,
Mahomes
all he needs
bias,
is an
yeah.
opportunity, and the Chiefs could be right back in the Super Bowl. So I don't think it's going to happen this year. I think the Ravens are way too good. But anything's possible. Anything's really possible.
The drops thing, I think it's been really important, been kind of understated too, that Rashee Rice has arrived as their number one receiver.
Yes.
And, I think the sky's the limit for him. Yeah, Kelsey I saw one drop that he had, but I know he caught the most balls that he has since like the beginning of December or something like that. I think it was 7.
Yeah.
7 receptions for 71 yards. Rice was 8 for 130 and a touchdown. So, I think having someone, especially on the outside, to take, yes, Kelsey has dropped a lot of balls. He has looked hurt. There had been games. I'm glad he got week 18 off because he definitely was running better than we saw him near the end of the year. It looked like he was laboring a lot.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of attention on him, and I don't mean who his girlfriend is. I mean, like, on the field, he's always been, he is a first ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt.
Yes.
But, when you have Tony and MVS and Sky Moore on the outside and you don't need to really worry about them, you're going, where Patrick's throwing the ball. And I'm not gonna comment on anyone dropping balls in that weather. I mean, I know they're professional athletes. But I can't imagine what a Patrick Mahomes bullet feels like in negative 20 degrees when,
Hey,
I can't. But
Sam,
I'm not a football player.
I
That's
will
why I'm
comment
here.
on it because you get paid millions of dollars to catch that
That's
goddamn
fair.
ball.
That's
So,
fine.
yeah.
You're not wrong,
Yeah.
man. You're not
Yeah.
wrong.
I know it's hard. I know
Yeah.
it feels like, I know it's painful. I mean, shit, Sam, we can walk outside right now and it's cold as hell and you can brush up against a bush and that will feel like somebody dug a knife into whatever limb that it touched, right? It's not great outside. And I'm saying that and it's 20 something degrees here. It was 18 this morning when I went outside originally. But that was negative. You know what I mean? And you're running full speed, getting hit by grown men at full speed, and then you're also hitting the ground, which feels like concrete at that point in time. So yeah, it's not easy, but again,
no, I don't. Look, they play a game for a living, and they get everything that comes along with it. I don't disagree with that, but I'm not gonna lose. Look, they won. It's not a big deal. This has been they need a new wide receiver coach. I don't know. Or maybe find people that could catch footballs, and I'm not counting Kelsey in this conversation. I'm not worried about Travis Kelsey, of course, but
that's fair.
I was thinking about it as I'm watching this Bills game too. Those big like Bills Chiefs playoff games, or even Bills Bengals, none of them were in Buffalo, were they? I think they were all either in Kansas City or in Cincinnati. Like, this will be if the Bills hold this lead and end up winning, and again, moot point for anyone listening to the podcast on Tuesday morning. But It'd be interesting to have the Chiefs come into Buffalo because
Well,
we
didn't the
know
Chiefs play Buffalo this year? And when that was when Mahomes was complaining about the calls, wasn't that in
right,
Buffalo?
that was in Buffalo. I meant
Yeah,
those, like, big
yeah.
playoff games
Oh yeah,
that
no,
we've
no,
seen in
yeah,
the
you're
last
right. And
couple
the
of
big playoff games were
years.
either in Arrowhead or
Or
in
in Cincy,
Cincy. So
yeah.
yes, for sure.
So that'd be a fun environment to see.
It would be interesting because it's cold as hell there too. What was also interesting to see is how the Browns did not show up against the Texans. So it was a matchup of 5-4. Browns 5 seed going to face Houston. The outcome was 45-14, and it was a blowout from the beginning. It was legit a blowout from the beginning. CJ Stroud is everything you could ask for and more. That team that D'Amico Ryans has down there, just D'Amico Ryans and himself, uh, there's something in the water, man. I'm telling you right now, and I'm going to flat out say it. They're the only real team in Texas. Yep. And I also would really like for people to stop calling the Dallas Cowboys America's team because that's embarrassing to America because you're misrepresenting what America looks like because we're not full of losers. So we should probably stop doing that too. But anyway, CJ looks really, really good. Like really, really, really good, Sam. And I'm very, very proud to see that young man do what he's done and knowing his story and hearing the conversations that he's had with one of his idols, Mike Vick. He got in contact with him from the beginning and he was asking Vic so many questions. And one of the main things I took away from hearing that conversation was Vic told him, no matter what, be yourself. Don't ever change who you are. It got you here. Be yourself. Grow, learn, but don't change the core of you because you're a good kid. You've done all this to get here. Continue to do what you have to do, right? So the fact that this kid has gone out, taken the time to get in contact with his one of his idols to learn from and all I've continuously heard about him, Sam, is that he's just been a sponge over and over again. Uh, they just balled out, and I don't even know. Do they have an opportunity? Well, does Dell have opportunity to come back during the playoffs? No, right?
Oh, no, I
He's
think
done
Dell's
until next
done.
season, right?
And Noah Brown, they just put him on IR too.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, because Dell broke his leg, right? I don't think.
yeah, okay. So uh, I I just love what they have, man. I think it's just really, really good to see what they have. On the other side, I said to Sam for the Browns, as he mentioned earlier, the Browns are playing with house money. They had 4 quarterbacks this year. Uh, you paid Deshaun all this money. Deshaun had them going at one point. It was slow start, but had him going at one point. He goes down. You had PJ Walker. Who was the other quarterback outside of Flacco?
DTR, right?
Yeah, DTR as
Thompson
well, right?
Robinson. Yeah.
So did not work. Flacco comes off of this couch. Great story that his kids actually get to see because they're grown up to see him play and like understand the game at this point and watch their dad play. He was balling, has been balling for the past few weeks, and then they get into this game and it's just a straight dud. Like even the defense, who is considered one of the top defenses, by the way, the number one defense in the NFL this year was Sam's Jets.
Yeah,
Sorry,
they
Sam.
were.
Sorry, Sam.
I'm surprised the amount of time they had to spend on the field too.
Yeah,
They were the number one
well,
defense.
that says how good they really are, and
Yeah.
that if I was a fan like you were, I would be optimistic, but also at the same time so pissed knowing that we're wasting years of this defense because we don't have an offense to go with it. But that's neither here nor there. I don't know what the Browns have to do. I think they really have a good core. I mean, they have a phenomenal defense. It's just, can they put it all together at once, right? And I'm curious to see what happens in this would be what year 2 of Deshaun Watson next year.
Well, I mean, if do you count last year because he only played like
I don't count
whatever
last year.
6 games.
Yeah, no, I'd
Yeah,
say
so
like year 2 this year.
I
But
don't know how long that deal is. What was it, 5 years? They're stuck with him. That's guaranteed money. I think the comparison, or just looking at these two teams, where you feel a lot better about the future of the Texans and then you realize it's like the Browns just got, you know, the wheels fell off against this young Texans team. Oh yeah, we have to continue to trade them our picks, and you know, Tank Dell, the one of the defensive tackles that got that pick six.
Mm-hmm.
He was part of the draft picks that the Browns sent over to Houston for Deshaun Watson. Damian Pierce was a part of that. Will Anderson was a part of that. Like, the Browns have rebuilt the Texans, and they have done it on the
They
fly.
have.
We talked about this. No one expected the Rams to be where they were. No one expected the Texans in year one
Mm-hmm.
to win that division, and especially with the way the Colts were playing without Anthony Richardson and the way the Jaguars just fell apart. No one kind of expected any of that to happen either.
Yeah.
And here they are, and the future looks incredibly bright. Like, the one thing and the reason I picked the Texans before last game was just the poise that this kid CJ Stroud has. Excuse me, and just the way he's been playing, and that was on full display. And you got to feel good about Ryans and this young core of players. They're hungry. They're not, or they going into they're probably going to Baltimore, and
That's gonna be a
that'll be a
really good game.
hell
Oh
of a
my gosh,
matchup.
really good
But
game.
you kind of have like these two teams where it's like nothing, the sky's the limit for Houston. And you mentioned a good core in Cleveland, but I just feel like this contract and the assets that you had to give up for that contract and Deshaun Watson, you're kind of stuck in the mud a little bit.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see. It's a cool story from Joe Flacco. I mean, it was risk reward. Like, he had nothing to lose. He was just slinging it for weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But this offense came alive, and now you see we don't really know what the deal is with Deshaun Watson. And I know he had a major injury, but before that, there were a lot of like questions about, is he just kind of taking his time with things and his head's on in the game and all that. We'll see. They're stuck with him. One thing I think too is a little underrated is how good Bobby Slowick has been, the offensive coordinator for the Texans.
Mm-hmm.
And he is in position to potentially get a head coaching job. And you mentioned CJ being a sponge, like, it'll be tested if this OC gets another job. But I don't think, I'm saying this, I don't think CJ is a result of just a good OC. It clearly is
No, I don't either.
a generational kind of talent.
Yeah.
But it can't help that if Bobby Slowick's not here next year. It can't help.
I will say this on the air so people can hear this. I believe the Ravens play on Sunday at 6:30 p.m. So you are more than welcome to come over, Sam. We'll see if he does it. I'll get back to you guys next week and let you know if he does or does not. Anyway, that was the games. That was the games.
It looks like it could be Texans at Ravens or Chiefs, 4:30 on Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We'll see.
I think if it was the Steelers, if the Steelers won, they would play it on Sunday. I think that's it. It's so weird at this time. Whatever, we'll figure out whatever schedules them.
It's weird doing a podcast. Yeah, we can't really do our picks because everything's not set. So check out Instagram later in the week, everybody, and we'll have our picks in there for sure. But I guess the one matchup we do have, just looking at this before we kind of get into other news, is Packers at Niners, 8:00 on Fox on Saturday night.
Yeah.
I think we're both, Packers, great story here, but I think the San Fran team is exceptionally good. I'm gonna go there. So
yeah, but we've also seen teams that have this long of a period of time to rest sometimes come out flat.
Yeah,
and where teams are hot, it's not great. So we'll see what happens. If that actually turns out to be like that, I doubt it will, but we'll see. Other news: which was very, 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 very interesting. 3 Hall of Fame coaches, definitely 3 Hall of Fame coaches have uh, either parted ways or have stepped down from their podiums, as I would like to say. The most famous one, who is arguably the greatest coach in NFL history, Bill Belichick. They parted ways with one another. They had a nice little press conference. Him and Robert Kraft patting each other on the back, all this type of jazz, and it was very casual. It was awkward as hell for me watching that. By the way, I was watching that. I was like, this is hella awkward, but sure, let's just do this, whatever. And then the next day, who has been rumored to be the next one to take Belichick's spot whenever he did leave, it was Gerard Mayo, who was captain for like, I think 10 straight years when he was on the Patriots or something like that. Some ridiculous number. But he is the former linebacker coach, is now the head coach of the Patriots. And I'm just very, very happy that they were able to fill the position. I'm happy they were able to fill the position with somebody that already knows the organization, has been around the organization so long. And I myself am very happy that it was a black man that was able to get the position, because the last time the Patriots had to hire a head coach, the Rooney Rule wasn't in effect. They didn't have to go through any of the stuff that all these other teams have had to go through with all the rules changing for coaching and interviewing, and they even avoided that this time around, and they had their guy already there, and they just did what they needed to do. So kudos to Gerard Mayo, but also kudos to Bill Belichick for being the longest tenured coach in the NFL at that point in time. Now that's severed. But just all that he's done in New England. I'm sorry, Sam. Uh, but yeah, he definitely deserves his flowers while he's here. We got to watch history, Sam. Like, we legit watched history. We were able to sit here and see something that we'll probably never see again in our existence. Maybe it'll happen again in some other decade or when we're long gone, if football doesn't turn into flag football by that time. But yeah, shout out to Bill. So thoughts on that, especially rooting for a rival team.
I surprisingly showed some love for Bill on last week's episode because I didn't understand I think regardless of how this season or like the failure to move on from Tom Brady and like establish a winning team, like there's a lot. Bill was part of that. Don't get me wrong. We've talked extensively about the draft history and all those other things, but this was, I'm glad at least he left on his own kind of terms, if whatever it is. But 213 coaches have been hired in the NFL since Bill Belichick became head coach of the Patriots 24 years ago. 213. I don't even know if the Texans were a team yet.
They were not.
They were not. So, but if you do 213 divided by 31, we'll round up. Each team has gone through 7 head coaches. I'm assuming this counts interim as well, but still 7 head coaches in the 24 years Bill's been the man in New England. So yeah, he'll get to do whatever he wants. I was surprised. It sounded like Washington's out on there. I know that was a hot name where he could go, but be interesting to see what happens there. I think being able to just pick a team that's ready to win with a really good defense. That's why I think the Dallas thing makes a lot of sense. But we'll see there. He gets to certainly pick, what the end of his coaching career looks like here, and that's certainly not a bad thing. But I'm glad he's out of the East. So.
I'm sure you are. I mean, you probably should want him to stay in there right now with the teams that they were putting together in New England, because it was absolutely terrible, and they only had 2 wins this year. So that's not great. Pete Carroll, he stepped down, which I don't think anybody saw. coming
It
at
sounds
all.
like it sounds like more like he was forced to do. I didn't hear any of these press conferences that you
I didn't
mentioned, the
either.
Bill one. I didn't see that one either, but um it sounded like he was not ready for that. So it was kind of an organizational decision, but
Yeah, and apparently, I mean, well, that's how I kind of don't agree with that. I don't know if that's necessarily true because why would he be a part of the team in some capacity? Like if you were wrongfully removed from that and they were like forced you, like why would you stay around after that? Because apparently that's the rumor is that he's going to be a part of the team in some other capacity. So I don't feel like Sam. I don't feel like if you're at your job and they came to you and were like, you know what, Sam, we're gonna remove you from your position. We know you love it. We know you want to continue doing it. We're gonna move you from that, but we're gonna have you do a lesser role because we just still want to keep you around. You're probably gonna have a sour taste in your mouth.
yeah,
Realistically,
no, that's fair.
you're not gonna be happy, especially if it's a major demotion or it's not something that you really truly want to do. You're probably gonna look to go elsewhere. So I don't know if that's. I'm curious to hear more about it because it kind of just it slipped in between Bill Belichick and the other guy we're going to talk about, Nick Saban. So it just, I don't know. It's just really weird. It really is weird. I'm curious what's going to happen.
I also think, I mean, didn't Vance Joseph, isn't he the DC for the Broncos after getting fired as their head
Yes.
coach, 3
Yes.
years ago or whatever? So like
Mhm.
that's kind of weird too. Like he came back. So I guess I don't know if that would be me, but to each their own. And again, there's only so many coaching jobs in the NFL, so I certainly don't think of any less of anyone that wants to take one, even if the situation's weird or it leaves something to be desired as far as the where you're going. But
Agreed.
uh, yeah, no, that was a shocker. A lot of names have floated there. I initially, Dan Quinn makes the most sense at be the next head coach since he did kind of was one of the masterminds behind the Legion of Boom and all
Yep.
of that. But he just didn't have the greatest showing. I don't know if that necessarily matters. I think the people, John Snyder and company in Seattle, knows who Dan Quinn is. I've heard Vrabel there. It'll be interesting. A guy who we got off the air and all of a sudden Mike Vrabel was fired. So
Yeah.
that was weird too. Yeah, it was a very weird couple days as far as hiring and firings. But from Pete Carroll to I think the big one too. And I know we have this down. We talk a little college football, but just not to bury the lead here. Nick Saban is done in Alabama, and they were quick to replace him. But your thoughts on Nick Saban? I know you've never shied away from your thoughts on Nick Saban, but the end of an era in Tuscaloosa.
I mean, Nick Saban is the greatest college coach ever. I just could care less about Nick Saban. I could care less really out of anything that happens in Alabama, except for some of the really good players that come out of there. I hate that organization with a passion. Saban is just whatever to me, but I do respect the history. I kind of just feel the way about Saban that you probably do about Belichick is like you respect the tenure, respect the time, but it's just kind of like whatever. I'm happy to see you just go off to wherever you're going to go off to. Like I don't really care for what he does, but for the game, he's definitely changed that. But I knew he wasn't going to stay around long because of how much he bitched about the NIL over
He
and
has
over and
been
over again.
complaining about it for a while. I know
Yeah.
Reggie Bush had a pretty viral tweet or
Give
whatever.
Reggie his trophy back.
Yeah, first off, give him his trophy back. You can
God damn it.
induct him into the College Hall of Fame or do whatever. Like, you can't do that and not give him his trophy back.
Give him his
Give
trophy
him the
back.
damn trophy back.
Yeah.
Second, I know, he said what a lot of people have inferred for a while because Nick has been complaining about NIL for a while, which is kind of crazy because before NIL, he was basically just like, here, these are all mine. And like taking all the
Yeah. Yeah.
prospects
And
and
once
all
he
the
started
five
seeing that
stars,
not go his way and kids can go to
it's
other
like,
places, he was like, no, I'm
stop my
pouting.
feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to
Uh-huh.
Washington. Yeah, you're gonna go
Yeah.
to Washington. You're
Oh,
gonna
well, what they're doing out there and blah, blah, blah. And they're doing all this and players are transferring. I love that players are being able to transfer. Like, hey, listen, I'm not getting any burn here. F you, I'm going over here and I'm going to
Right.
go do what I have to do. And then it just builds storylines, right? And then, but also the NIL is going to keep some players in college longer because they're making money here that some of them may not ever make in their life beyond college
Yeah.
football. So while you're here, make all the money that you can, do what you got to do, and then go. But yeah, whatever. I mean, speaking
Yeah.
of one of those people, Caleb, he's now said he's going into the draft, which he could have stayed and made a ton of money. It would definitely be him and Shador making the most money next year, probably for quarterbacks. And he has now said he's going to go to the draft, which I'm very not. I'm glad it's finally over, Sam, that we don't have to worry about. Oh, is he going?
Yeah.
Is he not going? I think we pretty much knew in our mind, in our heart of hearts, that he was going, but I'm just very happy that that saga is over. Like we know you're going. You're playing mind games, whatever. Bye. And
I
I know they have Caleb as a high prospect, right? But some of his last few games in college has me scared
yeah,
for what
performance is
potentially
not.
happens.
It's crazy because you have. I mean, we saw the talent. We knew the talent in Oklahoma right before he even got to USC. But it's kind of like one of those things where the hype just has not matched the play on the field. It's I mean, Trevor Lawrence won in college. Trevor Lawrence was elite in college. But those he never lit up the stat board. And there's more to being a quarterback and a leader of a team than I'm not saying Trevor Lawrence was a game manager or anything like that. Josh Allen running to the house like that. So it'd be interesting. I mean, we're going to be talking about this till we're blue in the face. What does Chicago do at 1? Because whether it's him or Drake May or Justin Fields, like there's a lot of different things you could do there. But it's it was a no brainer for Caleb to take his shot there and be the probably be the first pick in the draft. So
It'll be intriguing to see what happens.
yeah.
For sure. I'm curious as what happens, but I'm really curious to see what's going to happen in the divisional round. And after tonight, we'll know what's all laid out. And as Sam said, he'll mention exactly who and where they're going because it's all confusing as hell as to what days which is going to happen. But I'm absolutely looking forward to that. So with that said, Sam, close us out, good sir.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much for listening. 120 in the books. For Brandon, my name's Sam. Thank you so much for listening and watching and following us everywhere, and tell your friends. And until next time, peace.
Somebody do something about this cold. It's freezing. That's all I got to say. It's freezing. It's freezing. It's freezing. It's freezing. Do something about the cold. Goodbye.